If you've ever watched a potter working on a wheel, centering clay can look surprisingly easy. The wheel spins, the potter places their hands around the lump of clay, and within moments it appears perfectly balanced and ready to shape. From the outside, it seems like a simple first step before the real pottery begins. But ask almost any potter, especially a beginner, and they will tell you the same thing. Centering clay is one of the hardest skills to learn. In fact, many people spend their first pottery classes struggling with centering long before they ever make a bowl or a mug. So why is something that looks so simple actually so difficult? The answer begins with understanding what centering really is. When clay is placed on a spinning wheel, it naturally wants to move in every direction except the one you want. The clay may wobble, lean, bounce, or shift as the wheel turns. The potter's job is to guide millions of tiny clay particles into a perfectly balanced position around the wheel's center. That sounds straightforward, but the challenge is that the clay is constantly moving while you are trying to control it. Imagine trying to hold a spinning object that is pushing back against your hands. Too much pressure and the clay distorts. Too little pressure and it continues wobbling. The potter must apply exactly the right amount of force while keeping their hands steady and their body balanced. This is where many beginners struggle. At first, people often assume centering is about strength. They push harder and harder and harder against the clay, believing more force will solve the problem. But pottery quickly teaches a different lesson. Centering is less about strength and more about control. A small person with good technique can often center clay more effectively than someone much stronger. The secret lies in stability, consistency, and learning how to use the body's weight rather than relying entirely on the arm strength. Experienced potters often brace their elbows against their legs or body. This creates a stable foundation that allows pressure to remain steady as the wheel spins. Without that stability, even slight movements in the hands can make the clay wobble. Another reason centering is difficult is that clay responds to tension. If a potter feels nervous, frustrated, or impatient, those emotions often shows up in their hands. The clay reacts to every movement, every adjustment, and every inconsistency. In many ways, centering becomes a reflection of the potter's focus and state of mind. This is why experienced potters often describe centering as a conversation rather than a battle. The goal is not to force the clay into submission. The goal is to work with it, feeling how it responds and making subtle adjustments until balance is achieved. And when that balance finally happens, something remarkable occurs. The wobbling disappears. The clay feels still, even though it is spinning rapidly beneath your hands. Suddenly, the material becomes calm, controlled, and ready for shaping. Many potters describe this moment as one of the most satisfying experiences in ceramics. Yet, perhaps the greatest challenge of centering is that it cannot be mastered through theory alone. You can watch videos, you can read books, you can listen to advice, but eventually your hands must learn what balance feels like. That learning only comes through repetition, through failed attempts, through collapsed forms, through countless lumps of clay that refuse to cooperate. And that is exactly why centering is such an important part of pottery. It teaches patience, it teaches focus, it teaches persistence. Most importantly, it teaches that the foundation of every beautiful pot begins long before the shaping starts. Before clay can become a bowl, a vase, or a work of art, it must first find its center.
And sometimes, so must the potter.